All right, so you've got a big presentation coming up. Maybe you're already feeling those butterflies in your stomach.
We've all been there.
Well, today we are diving deep into Confident Presenter by Andrea Pacini.
It's a game changer.
This book is going to give you the tools to not just survive your next presentation, but to actually own the room.
It's about way more than just not being nervous. It's about crafting a presentation that truly connects and inspires.
And we're going to unpack all of Pacini's best advice to help you craft an unforgettable presentation.
And the best part is, it's not about some magic formula. Pacini's brilliance is that he breaks down this whole idea of confidence building into a really structured approach.
So no more just winging it and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Think of it like training for a marathon, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just show up on race day without putting in the work.
You'd have a plan, you'd train consistently, and you'd probably even have a coach to guide you.
And that's exactly how Pacini approaches presentations. He even uses this analogy of Usain Bolt.
Okay, Usain Bolt, the fastest man alive. I'm listening.
So even Usain Bolt, with all his natural talent, still needs a coach to help him reach his full potential.
So we all need a coach. Even Usain Bolt needs a coach. Presentations are no different.
Exactly. And Pacini is like that coach for your presentations. He really emphasizes that confidence comes from a solid process. He doesn't just throw you in the deep end.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're not talking about some innate charisma that some people just have and some people don't. We're talking about a skill you can build, a process you can follow.
Exactly. And he kicks things off by tackling this thing called the curse of knowledge, which I think we can all relate to.
Oh, the curse of knowledge. Tell me more.
It's that thing that happens when you get so close to your ideas. You've lived and breathed them for weeks, maybe even months. And you forget that everyone else hasn't.
They're not living in your head. They haven't spent hours obsessing over every last detail.
Exactly. And so we sometimes forget to explain things in a way that actually makes sense to people who are hearing it for the first time.
It's like when Homer bought Marge that bowling ball with his name on it.
Oh, classic Homer.
Total curse of knowledge fail. He was so excited about the gift that he forgot to consider what Marge would actually want.
And it happens in presentations all the time. But thankfully, Pacini has a solution for this. The what, so what, next model.
But breaking it down, making it clear, love it.
It's all about distilling your message down to its absolute essence.
And how short are we talking here? Twitter length.
He actually suggests aiming for 70 words or less.
Wow, that's concise.
But think about the power of that. If you can pitch your next big idea in just 70 words in a way that immediately resonates with your audience, that's huge.
It cuts through all the noise and gets right to the heart of your message.
Exactly. And he gives this great example of a company trying to showcase how their software could save clients thousands of miles of driving.
Okay, so how do you make that relatable? How do you make people really feel that impact?
Instead of just throwing out a huge number like, our software saves you 250,000 miles of driving, they made it tangible. They said something like, that's like driving the entire perimeter of the UK hundreds of times.
Suddenly it clicks. You can actually visualize that.
Exactly. And it's way more powerful than just a big abstract number.
It's like explaining a complex idea using things we already understand, right? Making those connections. And speaking of making things stick, Pacini is all about the rule of three.
Ah, yes, the rule of three. It's a classic for a reason.
So why do you think things in threes just work so well in presentations?
Well, Pacini talks about how our brains are hardwired for these kinds of trios.
We see it everywhere, right? Just do it. Location, location, location. These things just stick.
Exactly. Our brains just love patterns, and 3 is that magic number that creates a sense of completeness, a sense of balance.
So how can we actually use this to our advantage when we're crafting our presentations?
Pacini gives tons of great examples. You can use the rule of 3 to present 3 reasons to buy your product, 3 key benefits of your service, or even structure your whole presentation around 3 core messages.
It's like a cheat code for audience engagement.
He even helped a CEO structure his entire presentation on hiring. Using the rule of 3, he had the first hire, building the team, and scaling for success.
So each section had 3 key takeaways.
You got it. It provided this really clear, memorable framework for the audience.
Okay, so we've got a killer structure. We're avoiding the curse of knowledge. We're using the rule of 3. What's next?
Well, even with all that good stuff, you still need to hook your audience from the get-go.
First impressions are everything, right? Make it or break it.
Exactly. Pacini actually compares it to a first date, which I love.
Okay, a first date and a presentation, how are those two things connected?
He says you need to create that instant connection, that spark of interest,
Yeah.
or your audience is going to tune out.
So how do you actually do that? What are some practical tips for starting strong?
He suggests starting with something captivating, maybe a surprising fact or a relatable story.
Stories are so powerful for making those connections.
Totally. And he actually once started a presentation by comparing it to, wait for it, a first date.
So meta, I love that. Did the audience respond well to that?
They loved it. They were instantly engaged.
So you've got their attention, now what? Do you hit them with all the data?
Data is definitely important, but Pacini emphasizes making it relatable.
Because who wants to sit through a presentation that feels like a statistics lecture?
Right. So instead of saying, we saved clients 250,000 miles of driving, think about the equivalent. That's like circling the Earth 10 times.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's way more impactful.
Exactly. Relatability is key.
It's like that nurse explaining a baby's stomach size by comparing it to a cherry, then an apricot, then an egg.
I love that. It just makes sense, right? And it makes the information much more memorable.
Absolutely. It's about meeting your audience where they are. And speaking of making it about the audience, Pacini is all about putting their story front and center, not yours.
He talks about transforming case studies, for example, to really focus on the client's success. He uses this really simple framework for it: setting, complication, turning point, resolution.
So it's like telling a story with a beginning, middle, and end, but focusing on the client's journey.
Exactly. He even uses his own entrepreneurial journey as an example in the book.
I love when authors get personal like that, you know? Makes them much more relatable. What else does he use to help explain these ideas?
He's a big fan of analogies. He uses them all the time to explain these complex concepts in a way that just clicks.
So give me an example. What's one of the analogies he uses?
He once helped a client explain diversity by comparing it to excavating ancient Rome.
Okay, how does that even work?
So when you're excavating ancient Rome, you have to dig deep to uncover the hidden layers of history.
Right, it's not just what's on the surface.
Exactly. And understand diversity is similar. You have to look beyond the surface to appreciate the richness and complexity of different cultures, backgrounds, and experiences.
I love that. It's such a powerful way to make a complex topic relatable and memorable. All right, so we've talked about crafting a compelling story, avoiding the curse of knowledge, the power of the rule of three, and hooking your audience from the start. But what about the visuals?
Ah, the slides.
We've all sat through those presentations where it's just slide after slide of bullet points and text.
Death by PowerPoint.
It's painful. So what does Pacini have to say about creating visuals that actually enhance your presentation instead of putting everyone to sleep?
Well, he's a big advocate for simplicity.
Less is more.
Exactly. He actually uses this really cool analogy with Picasso.
Picasso, the painter.
Yep. So there's this series of lithographs that Picasso did called The Bull. Have you ever seen them?
I don't think so.
So he starts with this super realistic drawing of a bull, lots of detail.
Yeah, I'm picturing it.
And then with each version, he gradually strips away more and more lines, more and more detail.
Oh, interesting. So what happens?
Well, by the end, you're left with this incredibly simple image, just a few lines, but you still know exactly what it is. It still screams B-O-L.
He's gotten to the essence of the image, cut out all the unnecessary stuff.
Precisely. And Pacini says your slides should be like that. They should complement your message, not compete with it.
They should be more like billboards than instruction manuals.
Exactly. Think about Apple's design philosophy. Remember those old school remote controls with a million buttons?
Oh yeah, you had to have an engineering degree to figure those things out.
And then Steve Jobs comes along and unveils the Apple remote, which is just beautifully minimalist, only a few essential buttons.
And it was revolutionary. It just made sense.
And it's the same principle with your slides. Pacini wants you to ditch those walls of text, embrace the idea of one idea per slide.
Okay, I have to admit, that's where I struggle. I feel like I need to cram everything onto my slides, you know, so people can take notes and have all the information.
I hear you, but Pacini actually suggests creating separate handouts for those nitty-gritty details.
Oh, so you're not saying get rid of the information entirely, just take it off the slide.
Exactly. Keep your slides clean and visually focused. Give your audience the best of both worlds, a captivating presentation, and then detailed information they can dive into later.
So slides for the big picture, handouts for the deep dive. I like it. Okay, so let's say my message is sharp, my slides are looking sleek. Now what?
Practice.
Practice makes perfect, right?
Pacini cannot overemphasize the importance of rehearsal. He even tells this story about a Hollywood director who completely bombed a presentation because he wasn't prepared.
Oh no, talk about a nightmare scenario.
Right. And the thing is, it's completely avoidable. He argues that rehearsal is the key to calming your nerves and delivering a presentation that feels natural and confident.
So, how much practice are we talking here? Like, once through the slides the night before?
Puccini talks about this TEDx speaker who practiced his 18-minute speech for 21 days straight in 21 different locations.
Wow, that's dedication.
Right, but it paid off. His presentation was incredible.
Mhm.
That's the power of really knowing your stuff inside and out.
So, no more just kind of reading through my notes in my head 5 minutes before I'm on. I need to get up and speak out loud, own it.
Exactly. Record yourself, practice in front of a mirror, even give the presentation to a friend for feedback. It all helps.
It builds that muscle memory so you're not up there just trying to survive, you're actually thriving.
Exactly. It becomes second nature.
So, besides practice, what about those in the moment nerves? Any tips from Pacini on how to wrangle those when they inevitably strike?
He's got a whole arsenal of techniques. One of the simplest but most effective is focusing on your breathing.
Take a deep breath.
Sounds almost too easy, but it makes a world of difference.
So, why is breathing so important when we're talking about nerves?
Because when those nerves hit, our breathing tends to get all shallow and erratic, which just amps up the anxiety even more. But when you focus on taking those slow, deep breaths, it's like hitting the reset button for your nervous system.
We've covered so much ground. Crafting a compelling story, simplifying your visuals, the power of rehearsal, and even how to tackle those pesky nerves. But Pacini doesn't just leave you hanging with a head full of ideas, does he?
Not at all. He wraps things up with a clear call to action.
All right, let's unpack this. What's his big message here, and why should our listeners care?
He believes that being able to present confidently is more important than ever.
And why is that?
Well, in a world that's increasingly dominated by technology, it's those human skills, like connection and communication, that really make you stand out.
It's not just about presentations, really, is it? It's about being able to confidently share your ideas, inspire others, and make a real impact.
Exactly. And he's adamant that there's no better time to start than right now.
No more procrastinating, no more excuses.
He really emphasizes that even small improvements, those tiny tweaks you make to your approach, they can make a world of difference over time.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So, what's that first step our listeners can take? What concrete advice does Pacini offer for someone who's ready to level up their presentation game?
Well, he has this really cool tool.
We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into a confident presenter. We've covered a ton of ground already, from crafting a killer story to silencing those pesky presentation butterflies.
But now it's time to put all this wisdom into action.
So what's the one thing right here, right now, that our listeners can do to take that next step?
Well, Puccini ends the book with a challenge. Take his Confident Presenter scorecard.
Okay, so I've seen those online quizzes, what kind of presenter are you? Are those actually helpful?
This one's different. It's not about labeling you as an introvert or an extrovert or whatever.
So it's not like a personality test.
No, it's much more practical than that.
Yeah.
It's designed to pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses as a presenter, specifically based on everything we've been talking about today.
Oh, so it's like a personalized assessment tailored to the book's core principles.
Exactly. And here's the best part. It doesn't just give you a score and send you on your way.
It actually gives you actionable advice.
It does. It provides specific, actionable suggestions for improvement so you know exactly where to focus your energy.
Oh, that's awesome. That's way more helpful than a vague, you're a good communicator pat on the back.
Exactly. No fluff, just actionable insights. And, get this, he offers the scorecard for free on his website.
No excuses then. Our listeners can literally finish this episode and head straight to his site to take the scorecard. So what happens after the scorecard? Is there like a secret level for those who are ready to really level up?
You bet. He actually hosts a live web class where he dives even deeper into all these concepts, shares even more practical advice, answers audience questions.
It's like taking this deep dive to the next level.
Precisely. And it's all about empowering you to become the most confident, captivating presenter you can be.
It's so easy to get stuck in that I'm just not a natural presenter mindset.
Right, like it's some kind of innate talent that some people have and some people don't.
Exactly. But Pacini really drives home the point that this is a skill just like anything else. With the right approach, the right mindset, and the dedicated effort, anyone can become a more confident, engaging speaker.
Absolutely. And, it goes beyond just presentations.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Think about how these skills translate to other areas of your life, at work, in your personal relationships, even just advocating for yourself.
Being able to communicate your ideas clearly, confidently, that's huge, no matter what you do, who you're talking to.
Exactly. It's about owning your voice and sharing your ideas with the world.
I love that. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Confident Presenter, what's your biggest takeaway? What's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
For me, it's that confidence isn't something you're born with. It's not about having some magical stage presence. It's cultivated.
It's a skill you build.
Exactly. It's a process of preparation, practice, and self-awareness. And what's so brilliant about Pacini's approach is that he breaks it down into manageable steps, makes it feel achievable for everyone, no matter your starting point.
You don't have to become some kind of presentation guru overnight. It's about making those small, consistent improvements over time that lead to amazing results.
Absolutely. And remember, it's never too late to start.
Whether you're a seasoned executive or you're just starting out in your career.
Pacini's insights can truly transform the way you communicate and connect with others.
So to our listeners, take that first step. Take the scorecard, check out the web class, and start putting these ideas into practice.
You might just surprise yourself with what you can achieve.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been an amazing deep dive into Confident Presenter. I feel energized, I feel inspired, and I feel ready to tackle my next presentation with confidence. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time,